Mr. Holmes, we are extremely pleased again to have Sweden take on this leadership and to accept questions from citizens that emanate from 10 European countries. Why Sweden? Because as many of you know, after Paris and after Prague, Sweden will assume the presidency of the Council of the European Union for the last half of 2009, which is the road to Copenhagen. And I'm certain that under Swedish leadership, we will be able to conclude a positive post-2012 agreement. Okay, with no further ado, I would like to ask you the first question, which is basically a question that pertains to what happened yesterday in the Industry Committee. And the question, generally speaking, is do you think the objectives set forth by the European Commission proposal can still be reached?
Yes, indeed, I think so. Next week, the Environmental Committee will take its position on the emission targets from passenger cars. And of course, I think we will land on a slightly different result than the Industrial Committee did. But this is the way it works in the European Parliament. You have different committees protecting different interests from different angles. And but I'm pretty sure that from the environmental perspective, we will have a far more ambitious result than we could see last night.
Were you disappointed, of course, with what happened last night?
Sure, I'm disappointed. I think the industry must understand that they also have to take responsibility in the climate change issue. But what was good, though, was that actually the ITRE committee, they landed on long-term targets for cars. And they said that to 2020, all European cars, they should not emit more than 95 grams CO2 per kilometer.
Right.
And 95 grams CO2, well, that is a quite substantial cut. So if that will last, I will be pretty happy.
Now, I have questions, of course, that come from, I have here questions from the United Kingdom, from your own country, from Sweden. I have questions as well coming from Slovenia. So I'm going to start with this question that comes from the UK. Again, for the sake of clarification, we have 10 European countries, and in the 10 European countries, we have national moderators. It was the job of the national moderators to contact and recruit citizens and stakeholders, NGOs, and to ask them questions as it pertains to CO2 emissions on cars. So the question that I'm going to ask you now are not our questions, they are questions coming directly from the citizens.
Very good.
In the United Kingdom, for example, we are very pleased to have Dr. Tim Reiner with the University of East Anglia, the Tyndall Research Center. And the question here is one that says, if certain amendments currently proposed are adopted, and effectively postponing the compliance deadline to 2015, the industry will not be on a sufficiently downward trajectory to achieve the 100 grams by 2020.
Well, that is correct, and that is one of the big battles within the European Parliament right now. That is, what starting date should we have for this package on passenger cars? And the Commission proposed that the starting date should be 2012, and I totally agree. We should start at 2012, and we should include all passenger cars.
Yes.
And the target should be 130 grams per kilometers.
Now let me ask you about the differentiation you make between light cars and heavy cars. What is the issue here?
There is a problem right now with the proposal actually from the Commission that if you have a heavy car, I don't remember exactly too heavy, but a bit more than 2.5 tons, I think, of weight, it will be excluded from the whole directive. And I don't think that is fair. I think we should include all passenger cars. So that scope must be widened.
Now, I'm going to ask you a question, noblesse oblige, from your own country, from Sweden, and the fact was made that by the Association for the Conservation of Nature, that in effect even if we had more efficient cars, there will still be an increase of cars in circulation. So maybe you can address this in both Swedish and English if you can.
Okay. Absolut, och det viktigaste är faktiskt att vi åker mindre bil och att vi reser mer kollektivt. Och där måste ju självklart alla ta sitt ansvar. Vi som individer måste resa mer kollektivt och låta bilen stå mer hemma. Men självklart också så har vi politiker en väldigt stor roll. Vi måste satsa mer pengar på kollektiva färdmedel, satsa mer pengar på att bygga ut järnvägstrafiken. Det finns otroligt mycket att göra här. För det håller inte bara att bygga bilar som släpper ut mindre, utan det totala bilåkandet måste också minska.
Slovenia is an interesting country because they only have about 2 million population, but we are very fortunate to have there as a national moderator Simon de la Corda, who is the Institute of e-participation or ecology institute, and they were very with your Slovenian colleague. They just had an online debate. They have videos that they did, and their question is this: they were very critical, those citizens from Slovenia, towards the CO2 fines on excess emissions premium. And what they proposed instead was a more alternative financial approach, such as huge financial investment to the development of alternative technologies, or electric cars, and fossil fuel-free technology at the EU level, regardless which market technology is justifiable or sustainable. That's the approach of, this is the question from Slovenia.
Yeah. Well, I think it's very important that we have fines on car makers that do not comply with the European legislation. Otherwise, there is no point in having a legislation. And I think it's, if I understood their point correctly, I think it could be a fair idea to use the money we generate from those fines. We can use it to invest it in more efficient cars, in other modes of transport, and so on. So we can move money from the polluting car sector to new modern cars and new modern modes of transport.
What about what the French are saying here? Is this question from France, as a matter of fact, and given the fact that they are right now running the presidency, they was thinking of having some type of incentives, like in the insurance business, they call a bonus malus, So depending on tax incentive based on the type of car that you have.
Yeah. Well, those kind of incentives, I'm not sure if you should regulate that in this directive.
I see.
That is completely free to each and every member state to have, for instance, tax incentives. In Sweden we have so. In Sweden for biofuel cars you have tax cuts, so it's actually cheaper to have a biofuel car. You also get a grant from
What is
the
the magnitude of that tax cut?
Oh, good question. Well, at least it's so substantial, so it's economical for persons to invest in a biofuel car. And last year, actually, the amount of cars that were sold in Sweden, the majority were biofuels. They were not normal petrol cars, and that is interesting.